$240,000. That's the number we're talking about today. Not a typo, not an exaggeration. $240,000 lost by doing absolutely nothing wrong. No bad investment, no market crash, no mistake you'd even notice. Just 5 years, 5 years of waiting for the right time, for things to settle down, for more information. Here's what I want to show you today. Not a theory, the actual math, side by side. Two people, same income, same age, same everything. One difference, 5 years. And by the end, a gap of $240,000. Let's look at exactly how that happens. This is the bigger picture. Let me introduce you to two people. We'll call them Person A and Person B. Both 35 years old, both earning a similar income. Both, if you ask them, would say they're planning to start investing. Soon, Person A starts today, $300 a month, into a broad market index fund. Nothing exotic, nothing complicated, just starts. Person B also plans to start with $300 a month. Same fund, same strategy, but Person B has a reason to wait. Maybe it's a small debt they want cleared first. Maybe it's wanting to feel more secure before committing. Maybe it's just life being busy. Whatever the reason. It feels reasonable, it feels responsible even. I'll start once things settle down. 5 years pass, both reasons. Resolve, eventually. The debt gets paid, things do settle down. Person B starts, same $300 a month, same fund. From this point forward, both Person A and Person B do exactly the same thing, same contribution, same fund, same discipline for the next 25 years. Now here's the question. At age 65, how different are their accounts? Most people, when asked this, guess something like maybe $20,000 different, maybe 30. After all, it's only 5 years out of 30. That's not even 17% of the time. Here's the actual number. At a historical average return of 8% annually, Person A, who started at 35, has approximately $350,000 at 65. Person B, who started at 40, has approximately $230,000. The difference is $120,000 from 5 years. Now I said $240,000 at the start. Let me show you where that number comes from. Because there's a second part to this that almost nobody calculates. Those 5 years weren't just not invested. They were 5 years where Person B's money could have been compounding, but also 5 years that Person A's money got a head start that Person B's money never recovers from. Here's the thing about compounding. It's not just about the years you're in, it's about the years your money has to keep growing on top of itself. Person A's first 5 years of contributions, $15,000, total, by age 65, have been compounding for 30 years. That $15,000 alone becomes, on its own, over $150,000 just from those first 5 years, just from that head start. Person B never gets that. Not because Person B did anything wrong later, because those specific 5 years only happen once, and once they pass, they're not available again. Ever. This is what I mean by $240,000. It's not one number, it's the combination, the direct gap, at retirement. Plus, the compounding that those first 5 years would have generated on their own for the next 25. In the next part of this conversation, we're going to talk about why this is so hard to feel. In the moment, it actually matters. Let me add one more person to this story. Person C. Same age, same income, same starting point as A and B, but Person C does something different. Person C doesn't wait 5 years. But Person C also doesn't start with $300. Person C starts with $50 a month, because that's what feels manageable right now. Here's what I want you to notice. Person C started at the same time as Person A, Age 35, no waiting. But the amount is 6 times smaller. Let's do the math. $50 a month at 8% for 30 years becomes approximately $70,000. Compare that to person A's $300 a month, $350,000. A big difference. But here's the question I want to ask. Compare person C to person B. Person B waited 5 years, then started with 300, ended up with 230,000. Person C started immediately with 50, ended up with 70,000. Person B has more in this comparison. So, does that mean waiting was better than starting small? Not exactly. Because here's what person C can do that person B couldn't. Person C can increase the $50 next year, or in 2 years, or whenever their situation changes. Let's say in year 3, person C increases to $150 a month, and in year 6, increases again to $300. Now the comparison changes completely. Person C, who started small and increased over time, ends up, in this scenario, close to $300,000, more than person B, even though person C started with less than a sixth of the amount. Why? Because person C had 30 years of compounding. Person B had 25, that 5-year head start. Even at a tiny amount, was already working, already growing, already becoming something, while person B's account didn't exist yet. Here's the takeaway from person C. The amount you start with matters less than people think. The fact that you started matters more than people think. $50, starting today, isn't too small to matter. It's the first 5 years of compounding on whatever comes next. Here's what's strange about this $240,000. It's completely invisible at the moment it's being lost. Think about person B in that 5th year, sitting down, looking at their finances, thinking, okay, I think I'm ready to start now. In that moment, does it feel like anything was lost? No. It feels like nothing happened. No bill arrived, no money left in account. Person B's bank balance looks exactly the same, whether they started 5 years ago or today. There's no red number, no notification, no moment of loss, which is exactly why this is so easy to do. Compare this to other financial mistakes. If person B had, let's say, made a bad investment and lost $10,000, that would feel real. There'd be a number, a moment, a before and after, something to point to. But waiting produces no such moment. The cost of waiting isn't a loss that happens. It's a gain that doesn't happen. And the human brain is built to respond to losses, visible, immediate ones. It's not built to feel the absence of a gain that was never visible to begin with. This is, I think, the core reason this pattern repeats so consistently. Not because people don't understand compound interest. By now in this series, you understand it quite well. But understanding something intellectually and feeling its absence are two very different things. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine 2 plants, same seed, same pot, same everything. One gets planted today, the other gets planted in 5 years. For those 5 years, the second pot just has soil in it. Nothing visibly wrong, nothing visibly missing. It just looks like an empty pot. 5 years later, when the second seed finally gets planted, the first plant already has 5 years of growth, roots established, height gained, already producing. The second plant is starting from exactly where the first one started 5 years ago. Same seed, same potential, but the first plant isn't just 5 years ahead. It's 5 years ahead and still growing. At the same time, the second plant is just beginning. The gap between them doesn't stay at 5 years. It grows every single year after that. This is what makes the cost of waiting so different from other financial costs. A bad investment is a one-time loss, painful but contained. Waiting is a cost that compounds in reverse. It's not, I lost some money 5 years ago. It's, I lost what those 5 years would have become by the time I actually need the money. And here's the part that I think is most important to sit with. This isn't about judgment. Person B, in our example, did nothing irresponsible. They had a reason, a real one. It felt sensible at the time. This happens to thoughtful, careful, responsible people constantly, precisely because it doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like prudence. I'll wait until I'm more prepared. And 5 years later, I'll wait until things are more settled. And the years pass, quietly, invisibly, each one feeling like nothing. Each one costing exactly what we calculated. In the next part of this conversation, we're going to talk about what this means. If you recognize yourself in person B, and more importantly, what it doesn't mean. Let's say you recognize yourself in person B. Maybe it's been 5 years, maybe 10, maybe more. There's a reaction that tends to follow this kind of information, and I want to address it directly. Before it has a chance to settle in the wrong way, the reaction is usually something like, "So, I've already lost it. There's nothing to do now." Or, "I'm so far behind, what's even the point?" I want to push back on that, firmly, because it's based on a misunderstanding of what we just discussed. Here's the misunderstanding. The $240,000 example was about a specific 5-year window, 35 to 40. That window, if it already passed, is gone. That's true. Those exact 5 years can't be recovered. But here's what's also true. The mechanism we're describing doesn't have an expiration date. It doesn't say this only works if you start before 40. It says every year you're invested has time to compound, which means every year starting from today is a year that begins compounding today. Let's say someone is 45 and they've been person B for the last 10 years. Here's their honest math. Starting now, $300 a month at 8% by 65, 20 years from now. That becomes approximately $176,000. Is that less than if they'd started at 35? Yes, considerably less. But here's the question that actually matters. Less than what? Less than a hypothetical version of themselves that started earlier? Sure, but compared to not starting at all, $176,000 versus zero, that's not a small difference. That's the entire difference. And here's something else worth considering. The person A in our example started at 35, but what if someone's reading this at 50? Does the math stop working? No. At 50, $300 a month for 15 years at 8% becomes approximately $104,000. Still real, still meaningful, still significantly more than the alternative, which is continuing to wait. Here's what I want to be really clear about. This isn't about minimizing the cost of waiting. The $240,000 number is real. If you're in a position where those specific years haven't passed yet, that number is exactly why today matters more than it might feel like it does. But if those years have already passed, the relevant question isn't, what did I lose? It's, starting from today, what's the largest version of still ahead that's available to me? And the answer to that question is almost always larger than people expect, because they're comparing it to the wrong thing. They're comparing it to, what if I'd started earlier? Instead of comparing it to, what happens if I still don't start? Those are very different comparisons. One of them is permanently unavailable. The other is available right now. In the final part of this conversation, we're going to talk about what actually determines which side of today someone ends up on. I want to step back for a moment, because everything we've discussed so far has been about money, specifically. But I think there's something underneath this that applies more broadly. Think about anything else that compounds over time. Health, for example. Someone who starts exercising consistently at 35 versus someone who starts at 40. The difference, at 65, isn't just 5 years of exercise. It's 5 years of everything that follows from that. Habits formed earlier, patterns established earlier, a body that's been maintained 5 years longer, or relationships. Someone who starts being intentional about a friendship or a marriage 5 years earlier has 5 more years of whatever that intentionality produces. Trust built, patterns established, history accumulated. In every one of these areas, the same pattern applies. The cost of waiting isn't visible in the moment. It's invisible until you compare two versions side by side, the way we did with person A and person B. Here's why I'm mentioning this. If you've recognized yourself in person B, in this conversation specifically about money, it might be worth asking, where else in life this same pattern shows up? Not to add more things to worry about, but because, often, the same small shift. Start today with whatever's available automatically applies far beyond just money, and sometimes seeing it clearly in one area makes it easier to recognize in others. That's not the focus of today's conversation, but I think it's worth at least noticing. So what actually determines this? Why do some people hear something like what we've discussed today and start this week, while others hear the exact same information and 5 years from now are still person B? It's not intelligence. Person B in our story isn't less capable of understanding compound interest. It's not even motivation exactly. Person B wants to be financially secure, genuinely. Here's what I think it actually comes down to. The difference between person A and person B isn't a difference in what they know, it's a difference in what they're waiting for. Person A made a decision based on what was true today. I have some amount I can invest, I'll invest it. Person B made a decision based on what would be true eventually. Once X happens, once Y is resolved, once Z feels more settled, then I'll invest. And here's the problem with eventually. Eventually is not a date, it's a feeling. And feelings of readiness don't arrive on a schedule, they arrive when they arrive, if they arrive at all. Meanwhile, the 5 years, or 10, or however many, pass regardless, whether or not the feeling of readiness ever shows up. So here's the practical question. Is there something right now blocking you from starting? Not, do I feel ready? Something specific, concrete, identifiable. For some people, the honest answer is yes. High-interest debt that genuinely needs attention first, no income at all currently. A real specific obstacle. If that's the case, then the path is clear. Address that thing, specifically, with a plan, with an end date. Not until things feel better, until this specific thing is resolved. But for many people, when they're honest, the answer is no. There's no specific obstacle, there's just a feeling that hasn't arrived yet. And if that's the case, here's what I'd say. The feeling isn't coming, not because something's wrong with you, but because feeling ready was never actually a precondition. It was a story, a reasonable-sounding story, but a story nonetheless. The people who start aren't the people who felt ready. They're the people who stopped waiting for the feeling and started based on what was already true. An amount, however small. A count, however basic. A decision made today, not eventually. Here's what I'd encourage you to do with everything we've discussed. Not decide to invest more, not create a 5-year plan. Something smaller, if you haven't started. This week, open an account. Doesn't need to be funded with much. Doesn't need to be the right amount. Just open it. Because here's what that does. It moves the question from should I start to I've started, now what? And now what is a much easier question to answer. If you have started, check one thing, just one. Is it automatic? If contributions still require a monthly decision, that's the next thing to fix. Not the amount, the structure. Because the structure is what determines whether this is still happening in 5 years. Without requiring motivation every single month to keep it going. That's it. That's the entire action item. Not complicated, not requiring more information than you already have, just a decision. Today. I said in the last part that the structure matters more than the amount. Let me make that concrete. What does automatic actually look like? Not in theory, practically. Here's the sequence. Step 1. An account exists. Doesn't matter for now exactly which kind. What matters is, it exists. It's open. It's ready to receive money. Step 2. A transfer is set up from checking to that account. Same day, every month. Usually, right after income arrives. Not whenever there's extra. Right after income arrives. Step 3. And this is the part most people skip. The transfer goes into something, not just sits in a separate account as cash, into an investment, index fund, something that's actually working. Here's why each step matters. Step 1, having the account, removes the "where would this even go?" question. Step 2, automatic timing, removes the "did I remember this month?" question. Step 3, actually invested, removes the "is this just sitting here doing nothing?" problem. Together, these 3 steps mean that from the moment they're set up, no further decisions are required. Not next month, not next year. The only decision that was made was the one that set this up. Now here's what I think is the most underrated part of this. Once this is running, it becomes invisible. Not in the sense that it's hidden, in the sense that it stops requiring attention. It's not a line item you think about. It's just something that happens. The same way a phone bill happens or rent happens. Things that are automatic don't compete for willpower. They just occur. And here's the thing about things that just occur. They're the things that are still happening 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now. Not because of discipline maintained for 30 years, because of one decision maintained by a system for 30 years. That's the difference. Discipline is something you have to keep having. A system is something you only have to set up once. And I want to do something a little different for this part. Not more numbers, something else. I want you to imagine someone, specifically you, 30 years from now, sitting somewhere, maybe a kitchen table, maybe a porch, doesn't matter. And this version of you is looking back at today, at this exact moment, watching this, thinking about this. Here's the question I want you to sit with. What is that version of you wish you had done starting today? Not in vague terms, specifically. Because here's what's interesting about this exercise. When people actually do it, honestly, the answer is almost never complicated. It's rarely, "I wish I'd found some amazing investment." It's rarely, "I wish I'd timed the market perfectly." It's almost always something much simpler. "I wish I'd just started earlier, even with a small amount." "I wish I hadn't waited for things to feel more certain." "I wish I'd set it up automatically so I didn't have to keep deciding." Notice what these all have in common. None of them are about skill. None of them are about finding some secret. They're all about starting sooner, with less hesitation. Here's why I think this exercise matters. Throughout this conversation, we've talked about person A and person B as if they're different people, but they're not really. They're the same person. At 2 different points in time. Person B is person A, 5 years before they started, and the version of you, 30 years from now, is shaped in large part by which version shows up starting today. Not because today determines everything, but because today is the first of all the days that follow, and every one of those days either has money compounding in it or doesn't. I started this conversation with a number, $240,000, the cost of 5 years of waiting. But I want to end with something different. not a cost, a question. If the version of you 30 years from now could send one message back to today, what would it say? I think for most people, it would be short. Something like, just start. It's going to be okay. Just start. That message is available to you right now. Not from the future, from understanding what the future predictably tends to look like. The $240,000 was never really about the money. It was about which version of this conversation you're having. The one where you're person A, looking back at a decision you made today, or the one where 5 years from now, someone else is watching a video like this and recognizing themselves in person B again. That choice is the only thing this entire conversation was ever really about. If you're still here, I want to take a moment. Because today's conversation was different from some of our others, less about strategy, more about timing, and specifically about a kind of cost that's easy to miss, not because it's small, because it's invisible. We talked about $240,000, where that number actually comes from, not just the direct gap, but the compounding that those first years would have generated on their own. We talked about why this is so hard to feel, how waiting doesn't feel like loss, it feels like nothing, which is exactly what makes it so easy to repeat. We talked about what it means if you recognize yourself in person B, and, more importantly, what it doesn't mean. That the relevant question isn't, what did I lose? It's what's still available starting today. And we ended with something a little different, a version of you 30 years from now. Looking back, if something in today's conversation landed differently than usual, I'd invite you to stay close to this channel. Subscribe. Not because of what we'll tell you to buy, but because of what will keep helping you see. The kind of things that are easy to miss, until someone points them out, and then impossible to unsee. And share this with someone who's been person B for a while, not to make them feel bad, to give them the other side of the comparison, not what did you lose, what's still available. Sometimes that's the only thing someone needs to hear to finally start. And now, let's finish what we started. Because there's one more thing, something that ties everything in this series together, not a number, not a strategy, something simpler than both. Here's the thing that ties this together. Every conversation in this series has pointed at the same underlying idea. From a different angle each time. The snowball, the gap, the income streams, the cost of waiting, different topics, same idea underneath. Time is the one resource that money can't buy back. You can earn more money, you can learn new skills, you can build new income streams at almost any age, but you cannot, under any circumstances, acquire more time than you currently have, which means every decision that involves time carries a weight that other decisions don't. Not because time is more important than everything else, but because it's the only truly non-renewable resource. In this entire conversation, money lost can be earned again. Time that's passed has passed. This is why the cost of waiting isn't really a financial concept. It's a time concept that happens to show up in financial terms. The $240,000 is what 5 years of time looks like when you translate it into dollars. But the actual thing that was spent wasn't dollars, it was time. And here's what I think is worth remembering going forward. Every conversation we have, every concept we discuss, every number we calculate is really just time, expressed in a language that's easier to talk about. So here's my actual ask. Not invest more, not change your entire financial life by tomorrow. Just this. Whatever the smallest version of starting looks like for you, don't let it wait for a feeling that may never come. Because the version of you watching this in 5 years is either going to be person A, looking back at today glad they started, or person B, watching a similar video, thinking about the same $240,000 for a second time. The choice between those two people isn't made in 5 years. It's made today in whatever small action follows this conversation or doesn't. If this conversation has been worth your time, share it with someone who's been waiting for the right time. They deserve to know the right time was never going to announce itself. Leave a comment below. Tell me, are you person A or person B? And if you're person B, what's the one small thing you could do this week to start becoming person A? Because the next conversation starts with what you need most. This is the bigger picture: money, wealth, and the life you're building. We'll see you in the next one.